There's a lot we could talk about when it comes to Berserk, but since my video editor is a lazy we'll settle for a small but interesting detail. And since I like swords, let's talk about swords. Let's look at something which doesn't receive anywhere near as much attention: Griffith's sword. Compared to the Dragon Slayer, Griffith's dinky little sword doesn't really make much of an impression, and you'd be forgiven for not noticing it. But if we dig into it, there are some interesting details here. The question for today then: what's the deal with Griffith's sword? Short answer, it's pretty cool, and the elegant and somewhat exotic design works really well for Griffith. Long answer, it's subtle, but there's a whole lot more to this. Now, much like Guts, Griffith goes through a fair number of swords, but he does seem to have a preferred type. In broad terms, they're all one-handed, relatively narrow-bladed swords with ornate handguards. Most notably, they're also gently curved. Importantly, Griffith is the only character shown with this type of sword. Seeing as the swords in Berserk are generally straight, it really stands out. While this is unusual for Berserk, it's not all that strange. It doesn't seem to be based on any specific historical example, but Griffith's sword is more or less a cavalry saber, like these things, which makes sense, given that most of the time when we see Griffith fighting, he's on a horse. So what's the big deal? In short, Griffith's swords don't fit the time period. Now yes, Berserk is set in a fantasy world, and so our notions of history don't really apply, but Miura is pretty meticulous when it comes to his sources, and with a few notable exceptions, the weapons and armor in Berserk are based on real-world counterparts. Yes, even some of the more ridiculous ones. The vast majority of the arms and armor shown looks like it comes from around the late medieval to early Renaissance era, or somewhere between the 14 and 1600s here on Earth. The swords that Rickert makes, for example, would look perfectly at home next to a collection of early Renaissance side swords. And we know that the world of Berserk, particularly the Kingdom of Midland, is based on Denmark around the 15th to 16th centuries, so this all fits. Griffith's sabers don't belong to this time period. While it's possible that something like this could have existed around this time, sabers don't show up in Europe until around the 1700s, and they don't become common until the mid-1800s. What I'm saying is that Griffith is using a sword that shouldn't exist for another 200 years. This is a very small detail, but if you think about it, it really suits who Griffith is. Throughout the series, and particularly post-Conviction arc, Griffith always gives off a sense of otherworldliness. Several other characters even say that Griffith looks like someone who's stepped out of a painting or a fairy tale, a sort of ideal of what a human could be, rather than a real person. There's also something about the way he's drawn that makes Griffith look like he's standing in his own light. It's generally very subtle, but it really makes him stand out, and being the only person in the world with white hair doesn't exactly hurt. The point is that Griffith gives off this sense of being someone who really shouldn't exist in Berserk's world. There's something about him that marks him as special. Given this, it makes sense that he's using a sword that also really shouldn't exist. This also creates a nice relationship between Guts and Griffith. Both of them use impossible swords. The Dragon Slayer is a lot more obvious. One, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's actually stated to be an impossible sword designed to fight an impossible monster. And this really fits with Guts' character and what he's trying to do. Griffith's sword, while much more reasonable, also doesn't really fit in with Berserk's world. It's something that could exist, but really shouldn't, so it stands out as strange and uncanny, something that could almost have come from another world. And this really fits with Griffith's character and what he's trying to do. What we have then with Guts and Griffith are two characters who bend the rules of the world they live in, and it's really cool that their weapons reflect this. So there you have it. Griffith's sabers are something that really shouldn't exist in the world of Berserk. It's a small detail, but it really adds to the depth of storytelling, bending the rules of the universe just enough to stand out as something that doesn't belong. And that really suits Griffith. He's someone who, for quite a few reasons, shouldn't really exist. He's a little strange, uncanny, and otherworldly. So it makes sense for him to use a weapon that's a little strange, uncanny, and otherworldly. Every time I read through Berserk, it seems like I notice something new. Really, this is just a testament to the genius of Kentaro Miura and the amazing work that he's given us. Once again, thank you.